Hello, this is Angela with Parkrose Permaculture. It's a beautiful September morning here in Portland, Oregon. I'm sitting in the backyard of my permaculture garden and I am working on prepping grapes for grape jelly. Yesterday afternoon, I harvested a bunch of grapes from my front yard. There are two varieties up there. One is a French variety whose name I can't remember, and the other is a mystery variety. I thought it was Cannabis, but they aren't seedless, so I don't know what variety this is. I got a cutting from the Home Orchard Society, which is now the Home Orchard Education Center, more than 10 years ago, probably close to 15 years ago, at their Scion Fair. And so I have no idea what this variety is that I have, but it's very prolific, very disease resistant, and really tasty. It is seedy though. So I'm out here and I am stemming my grapes so that I can make grape jelly. So I thought, while I'm working on that chore here, I have a huge bowl already in the house of grapes that I've stemmed, but it's full, so I'm on to bowl number 2. I thought, while I'm de-stemming my grapes, let's talk a little bit about kind of what the permaculture season of the year is like in September. For me, September is a really bustling month. Sometimes it's still hot, but typically the nights start to get cool here in Portland. It's in the low 50s at night. There is this kind of crispness in the air that says fall is on the way. And we've had a few days of rain, although typically it's still quite dry this early in the month. And so there's this continued sunshine and productivity in the garden and, just vast and abundant harvests. But there is this quality to the air, to the daylight, to the kind of aura of the garden that says the garden season is winding down and you are in the home stretch. It says, hurry up and make hay while the sun shines. There is this sense of, if you want to get more out of the garden in terms of harvests, in terms of the experience of the garden, then you need to get it done right now. There's no more waiting. There's no stalling. This is it. Suck up as much of the garden as you can for the year, which is great. I'm really looking forward to resting. I'm really tired of gardening season. And so for me in September, there's this tremendous amount of work that is left, that is really fulfilling work, because it mostly takes the form of harvesting and also starting to clean up the garden. And both of those are really enjoyable tasks. I think for those of us in permaculture, George is going to come out here. It's okay. You can go ahead and cook if you want. Okay, the air fryer is now going behind me, is what it is. So I think for those of us in permaculture, we understand that permaculture is permanent agriculture. We understand that it is a way of growing food that should theoretically reduce the amount of labor that we have to put in. I've talked about this in the past. That does not mean that it is no labor. It's not some kind of Eden that is self-harvesting and like fully automated, and we just sit back and the food is just funneled into our laps. For me, the bulk of the work that I do in the garden is harvesting. It takes so much more time than I think most people anticipate. Not just harvesting, but then processing, right? Snapping green beans and de-stemming grapes and cooking things down or blanching them and freezing them, making jam, making pickles, making sauces and chutneys, dehydrating. All of that takes a tremendous amount of work. And in September, I'm keenly aware of the fact that the days are getting shorter. The amount of time I have to work is decreasing. The amount of time in the sunshine I have to work. That very soon there will be nothing fresh from the garden to harvest anymore. And so not only do I need to get in what I can get in, but then I have a limited duration of time in which to process it so that I can enjoy the abundance of the garden for the coming year, right? All the way until next year. This is all of the grapes I will have until next year. Well, not entirely true. My Concord grapes out behind me, out this way in the backyard, aren't ripe yet. It'll be all of these grapes. I'll have 2 waves of grapes. Makes it even more urgent to get these in and processed, because no sooner am I done with this than I will have a different variety of grape. So if you're thinking about planting your permaculture garden, if you're thinking about the volume of tasks that you have to undertake, if you're thinking about the workload, the number of life hours that you will put in, I would really encourage you to overestimate the amount of time you will spend harvesting and processing. and whether you have the ability to commit to that. Because what happens if you don't do that is that you end up with fruit rotting on the ground. You end up with a lot of food waste. Now, there are organizations like the Portland Fruit Tree Project that will come in and help make use of fruit that you're not able to. Wonderful organization. I'll link to them down below. But when we're planning out the year, setting realistic expectations, not only of how much watering and weeding and mulching you're able to do, but how much time and energy you have to harvest and process, really needs to come into consideration before you implement your permaculture garden design. I tend to overplant quite heavily because I'm planning to feed a percentage of the wildlife. I'm planning for unforeseen events, like some unexpected pest, like last year I had squash bugs for the first time, or some unexpected weather event, like last year we had a very late freeze and most of my city didn't get any stone fruit because all of the blossoms froze off for most folks. I do tend to have often more food than I know what to do with when everything produces as it should. So this year is a great stone fruit year. I'm drowning in plums. Part of the reason that we put together the little Honesty Farm stand, which I've not really had open very much this year because I've been so busy, but I want to have it opened more in the fall. Part of the reason that we did that is so that we could exercise the permaculture ethic of share the surplus. Oh. Hey George, your food is done. So part of the reason that we did that farm stand was to be able to share the surplus, the third ethic of permaculture. But that doesn't mean that that is fixing the labor problem necessarily, because I still have to harvest and, pick through and put out and display items to share with the public. So even if you're planning on sharing a significant portion of your harvest based on your permaculture design. Hey George. So I'd really encourage you when you are planning your permaculture garden, what plants are going to be in it, when they are going to mature during the year, their crops are going to mature. I would really encourage you to overplan for that amount of time you will spend harvesting, either for your own family or to share, and processing. It's far more than I think most people anticipate, and it even catches me off guard. After all of these years, it catches me off guard how much time it takes. Now, we're able to use a bunch of the food because there's 6 of us, 6 adult-sized people, basically, in our house. As time goes on, I know that there will continue to be increased harvests out of the garden, and there will be fewer people living in this household, I imagine. So what will that look like in terms of sharing the surplus, in terms of sharing the labor of harvesting, in terms of what my garden design is in the beginning? When I first started this garden, I think it was hard for me to imagine a time. Well, when I first started this garden, I only had 3 kids. Our household wasn't even full yet. But it was hard for me to imagine a time where the amount of food we would be consuming would not be ever increasing because I would no longer have growing kids. And now I am seeing that the amount of food that we're consuming is way up here, but I do see that there will come a day when there's less, and that I will be able to grow less and still meet the needs of our household. But my trees are becoming more and more mature. Most of them are fully mature and will continue to produce greater and greater yields. So what's that going to look like in the future? And I wish that when I had started my design, I had gotten some wisdom and insight from older members of the permaculture community about the ebb and flow, about that curve in the needs of the household and the production of the garden, and what my plan would be long range. I would just encourage you, when you're planning your permaculture garden, think about the harvest not this year, but in 5 years, and think about the harvest in 10 years, and think about the shape of your household, the components, the people in your household in the future, the trajectory of the productivity of your garden with the consumption needs of your household and your community. And then superimpose on top of that your own energy and time availability, and see if it lines up, if it's realistic to plant as much as you are thinking of planting. It's very easy to plant everything because goodness knows, like I'm a plant collector. I love to grow fruit. So I want to collect all of the types of fruit. Do we really need to grow that many varieties? Do I really need to grow 5 kinds of grapes? Nope, I have pared down to 3. I have 3 kinds of grapes. So I guess where I'm going in this video is that in September, I am reminded of how much work it is, how bustling and busy and productive this time of year is, and how much time I will need to give in order to do justice to the harvest coming out of the garden, to pick it, to process it, and to prepare for the months ahead. And so I would encourage you to do the same if you are early in your permaculture journey. There is a way to sit down and really forecast and think about what you can give, what the commitments are of the garden, how those interact with each other, how they match up with each other, and what that means for what you're going to plant, and what plants that you plant, what their maturation process is like, and what that means for their productivity, and how that matches up with the needs of your household. I know that's a lot of moving parts, but permaculture focuses on the connectivity of all things, right? The fact that we aren't doing any one element in isolation. And obviously, our time commitment needs, our nutritional needs, and the harvests that are coming out of our garden are all dependent on each other, are all totally connected, and super important to take into account. So George's lunch is done. Thank you for watching today. I'll be back very soon for my permaculture garden here in Portland, Oregon. I will be harvesting lots and lots. I'm gonna go in and crush these and add them to the giant bowl of grapes that I have, make some grape juice, strain it in my jelly bag, and tomorrow morning very early, I will be making grape jelly. I hope you are staying well and safe. I hope you are enjoying the beautiful crisp fall weather. I'll be going to the park later this afternoon and enjoying the lovely, lovely day. Don't forget to click like and subscribe, and I'll be back soon. All right, lots left, but I think we're done for now. This is enough for a batch of jelly.